With the south winds, it's pushed in the pretty green water, and according to our guides' reports, the redfish, trout, and flounder bite inshore is on fire. And the calm forecast should make for great offshore fishing as well. So listen up, because it's time for the Texas Insider Fishing Report.
Welcome to the Texas Insider Fishing Report. Presented by Yamaha.
Hello, ladies and gents. You're watching the Texas Insider Fishing Report. We're your hosts, Bree Gabrielle and Captain Rick Murphy, along with your guides and captains from around the state with essential fish catching secrets. Rick, do you know anything about these essential fish catching secrets?
You know, Bree, I really do, but more importantly, where I learn about a lot more than just essential secrets is over at the workbench with our man.
Essential secrets over at the workbench with Dave Farrell. Are you going to let us in on some secrets
He gets a lot more than essential secrets. There's a lot of superfluous, non-essential secrets in there as well.
Oh, now you're saying words he can't say. Good job, Dave. Good
we
job.
We might as well start the show over. I'm lost already.
Superfluous. That was that word if you missed it.
Superfluous.
All right, guys, before we get to our first guide, we hope everyone is staying safe and healthy and enjoying fishing as much as they can. However, with our new normal, everything is constantly changing by region. So before heading out, make sure to check for updates with your local authorities and practice social distancing. All right, that being said, let's get your weekend started in the lower fresh region with Matt Reed working it on Lake Falcon, Somerville, Fayette County, Travis, Stillhouse Hollow, Buchanan, and Amistad. That's a lot, Matt, so let's get to it.
Yeah, it's a lot. Let's see how we can make this roll. I'm going to start out at Falcon. The bass have been really cooperating lately. The early morning square bill crankbait bite is good on the shallow rocky points. You can also catch a ton throwing it around the old house rock piles where the old houses were before the lake was built. If you like to flip trees, the flipping bite on the hardwoods has been really good. Just take a Texas rig soft plastic and cover as many of the trees as you can, and there's been a bunch of them still in the shallower trees. But my favorite bite is the deeper bite out on the main lake rock, humps, and ledges. I've been catching them throwing a Carolina rig and a deep crankbait, and that's the way I've been catching some of my biggest ones. Lake Somerville, the bass are biting really well. The spawn's over. The shad spawn is kicked in on the rocky shores. Those bass are gorging on those shad early in the mornings. A lipless crankbait, small spinnerbait, and a square bill have been working well. After the sun gets high, move out to the first drop, find you brush piles or some rocky bottom, throw a light Carolina rig and a green pumpkin-colored plastic or black. You seem to be doing the best lately. Moving on over to Fayette County, there's been good fish along the reeds early in the morning on chatterbaits and popping frogs. They're in wolf packs, so cover as much water as you can. You'll run over 5 or 6 of them in a row, and you might not catch them for 100 yards or so, but keep moving and you'll run over another group of them. Later in the day, move on out on the main lake drop-offs and road beds. Catch them on a Carolina rig stick bait or a fluke. After they fire, you may catch some on a flutter spoon. Those fish are in 10 to 20 foot. The biggest key is to find a hard bottom. Read your graph and get a strong return. Look for that hard bottom, and that's where they're grouped up. Over at Lake Travis, the fish has been very good for numbers, but not necessarily size. It's post-spawn, so most of them you're catching are males that are still hanging around if they're shallow. If you want to catch a bigger one, move out to that 20-foot range and throw you a jig, and you're catching an occasional big one. But most of them at Travis right now have been small in the 1 to 2 pound range. Stillhouse Hollow, they're catching several big fish a week over there now. Most of the bigger fish are coming out of 15 to 20 feet of water on a Carolina rig creature bait out on the outside edges of the grass flats. If you want some numbers, get up shallower in the grass. There's a lot of smaller bass up there. Been able to catch quite a few. Lake Buchanan, the largemouth are good flipping trees in 5 to 12 feet of water using Texas rig crawl worms or soft plastic stick baits. There's also been a few caught on spinnerbaits and crankbaits. Lake Amistad. Amistad's been on fire. Spawn's pretty much over. Shad spawn is kicked in. Those post-spawn fish are gorging on the shad on the windy points up shallow early in the mornings. You can take a rattle bait or a small shallow crankbait and catch a ton of them. There's times right now you can get in a big group of them, catch a bunch in a hurry on that shad spawn. What's really kicking in, though, is the topwater bite, which Amistad's famous for. That clear water really makes them feed up over the hydrilla, especially post-spawn. Gets you a walking style, spook type, walk the dog presentation topwater. It's a great way to catch a big one. They'll actually come out of really deep, 10 to 15 feet of water over the grass to bite that bait when it's calm and they can track it. If the sun gets high and you can't get that topwater bite, pick you up a Texas rig, get on the outside edge of the hydrilla, drag a big worm slow, and that's a great way to target a specific big fish. Got a picture there because of a father-son customers of mine this week at Falcon with just a couple of nice chunks that they caught at the same time.
Man, they look good. All right. Tell us about the catfish, Bub.
Bud, Lake Falcon catfish. There's a lot of small catfish being caught right now in the hardwoods on the shallow flats with stink-baked shrimp and shad. The bigger cats are suspended right now, gorging on big gizzard shad, as they're finishing up their spawn. Moving to the white bass and hybrids. Lake Buchanan's been fishing great for the, white bass, hybrids, and stripers. Get out in that 20 to 40 feet of water over the channel with your electronics, find the clouds of shad, get you a jig and spoon, and you can load up on some big old hybrids and whites right now. That's a picture there of Brian Cotter with Texas Hog Guide Service, who helps me out on a ton on these reports with a handful of big old stripers and hybrids.
Well, thank you so much for helping on the reports. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the hot spots from the lower fresh region. Matt says that Falcon Lake bass are biting extremely well. There are several ways to catch them. The shallow square-bill crankbait bite is great for numbers, and you can also get bit flipping the hardwoods with Texas rig soft plastics. Matt's favorite way at the moment is to throw a C-rig or a crankbait on the deeper rock ledges, Bree.
Well, that was that, Matt. Now let's move on to our Startron Middle Fresh Region, Matt, who has all the Toledo Bend and Sam Rayburn info you're going to need for a fun weekend on the water. Matt, give us some good news.
All right, I sure will, Bree. I got lots of good news. Things are exciting right now. The fish are just really munching. The bass are feeding like crazy. They're basically done spawning in most of the Middle Fresh region, and this week it's all about the shad spawn and a little bit of brim spawn starting to happen. So on Toledo Bend, you're going to want to really look for that action up around the bushes and the docks early in the morning. And throw a popping plug. It can be a shad color or a brim color. The shad color has been better lately. And then once the sun gets up, get tighter into the cover with a pitching bait like that Bass Assassin Skunk 8. Sprayed grass is a great color for mimicking those brim that they're eating on once that sun gets up. Pitch it in there in the middle of the bushes and tight to the cypress trees and wood posts where those bass are going to be lurking in that shade later in the day. Now, over on Sam Rayburn, that same bait fish spawn is happening there as well. But because there's a lot of vegetation on that lake, a frog is a little bit better tool for catching them there. You're going to want to do that frog all morning. And then once the sun gets high, you don't have to put it down. Don't be afraid to keep throwing that frog over that matted grass all day long. Some days they'll blow up on it all day. But if they won't, then if they stop blowing up on the frog, then just go in after them. Get in that thick matted grass and use a heavy punching setup. Pitch a black and red skunk 8 into that thicker stuff and use whatever size weight that you need to get it easily through that mat. You want it to go through there and get that reaction bite. And up on Richland Chambers, Mr. Thurman Selman says that the largemouth there are done spawning as well, and the bass bite has been real good. The shad are spawning there also, and the bass are chasing them in the shallows. Wacky rigs, small crankbaits, and small spinner baits have all been good for catching them there. Now, on to crappie fishing. The crappie on Toledo Bend have really started to move out and get into their early summertime areas in about 15 to 20 foot. But due to all the recent rains we've had and the current that's running through the reservoir right now, they aren't up in the water column hanging around the trees as much as they normally would be. They're kind of hanging down near the bottom under those big schools of shad that are moving in and out to spawn. So you can catch them really well right now on a jig, just kind of hopping it off the bottom in that depth range, almost working it like a worm. Most of the time I like to use a 16th ounce head, and I put that Panfish Assassin Pro Tiny Shad on it. Monkey Milk or the Chartreuse Tail has been the best color for me lately. And then if you want to get right on top of them and tight line live minnows, that works good as well. And I got a photo here for you of a client of mine, Mr. Luke Leday, with a real nice big white crappie he caught just a couple days ago. These big ones are really starting to feed again. They're done spawning, and it's been a lot of fun to catch them. Then lastly, I've got a little bit of white bass to talk about, or the swimming fish tacos, as I like to call them. They're really chewing right now as well on Toledo Bend. All that current has just got them stacked up on the main lake point. Live minnows are good, tight lined, or jigging spoons are good as well if you want to go with the artificial route. And those are hanging in about 10 to 20 foot of water.
All right, bub, wait us bring the second map patrol in. We're gonna go ahead and take a look at the Middle Fresh region hotspots from the Startron region. Excuse me. He says bass on Toledo Bend and Sam Rayburn are feeding on spawning bait fish around the shallow cover. Topwater and pitch baits are best. And then crappie on Toledo Bend are hanging near the bottom in 15 to 20 feet, biting jigs and minnows. And then those white bass that he talked about at the end of his report are in 10 to 20 feet, biting minnows and jigging spoons. Man.
Swimming fish tacos,
Yeah.
maybe?
Yeah.
All right, we've got more reports coming your way from the Garmin Lower Coast region, but first, we're getting a lesson from Dave Farrell at the workbench for rigs and techniques. Dave, it's looking pretty frogalicious over there.
Yeah, I think this thing would scare away more bass than would eat it. But we're going to talk about frogs. Man, this one's got some nice legs.
That's nice.
you
Look at
can eat
those
this guy.
legs. We'll be back.
Froggy.
The Texas Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. Casa Vieja Lodge. 5-star angling in beautiful Guatemala. Garmin. Join the club. Sportsman's Adventures. Fishing for adventure. And Skeeter Performance Fishing Boats. Eat, sleep, fish.
Reliability. Yamaha is known for it. And it's something boaters value, because these days, few things are built to last. When we find something that is, we hold on to friendships, traditions, outboards. Because every second on the water is sacred. If you count on having this time, you need an outboard you can count on to power it. That's why boaters choose Yamaha for the long run, for life. Because reliability starts here.
Remember the glory days of gasoline? It's just not made the same anymore. Kick your gas into gear with StarTron. Pump up the performance in all of your engines. Cure the problems of ethanol with the power of enzymes. And maximize your mileage every time you drive. Kickstart your engines with StarTron.
For the Bay and beyond, team up with the best and rule the Bay in a Skeeter. Proven with 19 consecutive NMMA Consumer Satisfaction Awards. And right now, through June 20th, you can save with summer sizzling rebates of up to $2,500. Versatility, control, performance, and design. Visit your local Skeeter dealer or online at SkeeterBoats.com. Skeeter, it's more than a boat, it's a lifestyle.
Have you ever felt your heart pounding while feeling the power of a tarpon in the Florida Keys? Or experienced the changing colors of a mahi as you bring it on board? Whether it's in the Bahamas, the Florida Keys, Guatemala, or the Florida Everglades, Murphy's Law Sports Fishing has the ability to guide you to the fish of a lifetime. To book your trip today, call 305-246-0673 or go to murphyslawsportfishing.com. Well, we're here at the workbench, and it's time for Rigs and Techniques. And Dave, it's time for you to earn your keep.
Well, I'm going to try. I like to fish with frogs. We're talking about fishing with frogs because it's about that time of year. They're starting to fire off, like all the boys have said. Hey, and you can throw a frog in the morning, and you can throw a frog all day if you want to. You might not catch as many as the other fellow who switches, but if you keep throwing the frog, you're going to catch a big one because big things eat these bigger baits. And most of the frogs are bigger. You can throw little frogs too, but usually what the advantages of these frogs are is you can throw them in places, they're very weedless, and you can throw them into places where you can't usually throw a lot of other stuff. And that that gets you in front of a lot of fish that other people can't get to, and it also gets you in front of bigger fish.
Right.
And plus the bite is spectacular. I only fish for seeing the bite much anymore. I mean, I like to catch them, but I'd like to see them eat.
Right.
Even when I go blue marlin fishing, I like to see them pounding on the teaser. Well, to me, to get a frog, just to get them to bite it a couple of times, I don't even have to catch them. But because I want to catch them, I'm using pretty heavy gear. When I usually am using a bait caster when I'm throwing a frog, a sizable one. I actually use a giant saltwater. It's actually an ambassador. It's a giant Revo one, and it's a monster. It's made to catch big saltwater fish. But this Akuma one will be just fine. But it's it's a big reel, and it's got a lot of drag, because if you're pulling a big fish out of this heavy cover, you need to have a lot of torque, and you need to get them out of there. And sometimes a spinning reel is not as good.
So what size diamond braid 8X would you put on?
Well, I like to use
40,
at least 40 to 60.
65 maybe.
I guess so. You're probably not going to break the line. You'll probably end up tearing the bait out of the fish before you'll break 60 pound.
Right.
That's heavy stuff. But you'll be able to jerk them out of there. And you need a good stiff rod with a little bit of flex at the tip, because again, when you haul back on them, especially if you're tied straight with braid straight to, you've got no stretch. So you have a good chance of jerking that thing right out of his mouth. And if you have a little section of mono, you get a little bit of
forgiveness.
A little bit of cushion. Not a whole lot. I don't know how much a 2-foot stretch or 3-foot stretch of braid, a piece of mono is going to stretch, but it's enough. And that light tip will save you as well. And when you're fishing in that really heavy stuff, that's what you need. You need to be able to pull them out. And
so what are some of the other frogs that you like?
Well, there's several different types. There's the collapsible frogs, these realistic, or those aren't. That's just a rivet frog, or a hard, like a creature frog. That can be either buzzed on the top,
like a buzzbait.
Like a buzzbait, if it's got the little curly tails on it,
like
or
the bass ass
like that logger toad.
Yep.
You can that thing swims, or you can put it on a Carolina rig, and drop it down and get underneath and fish it on the bottom, a couple feet off the bottom. Those solid body frogs are good for that, and they're really good for buzzing on the surface as well. When they're really popping on the top, you can really buzz those frogs, and with the little spinners on their tails there, and get a bite. Now these are the more realistic frogs. You probably want to work those a little slower, in the vegetation. Throw it right up in the stuff. I tell people, to work it as slow as you can, and then get slower and slower.
It looks like Bree running down to the boat early in the morning.
You can really leave one sitting for 30 seconds or more. Give it a little twitch, let it sit for 30 seconds, and then the next time you move it, just give it another little tiny twitch. This is a popping frog. This is a frog that's made to pop. It's just like any topwater plug. You can use that when they're biting shad on the surface, or just about anything, because it makes a pop. Now it looks like a frog, so you can throw it up into the vegetation, and it's weedless because it's got the 2 hooks and the soft body, so it collapses when they bite it. But again, if you throw that thing out there when they're biting shad on the top, they're going to eat that too. Most of the time, we say that these are all frog baits and that the fish are eating a frog. Well, I guarantee you a lot of times they have no clue what that thing is. It could be a little mouse, a little duckling. It's just something that's moving across the top of that mat, and they want to get it because it's moving and it's smaller than they are, and that's what they eat. Now, like Matt was saying before, a lot of these solid body frogs, if you put a nice heavy weight on there, you'll notice that when a frog is sitting on the surface, and if you spook a frog, he goes straight to the bottom. He puts his head down and he goes straight to the bottom like an arrow. He goes fast. Mm-hmm. Well, if you put a nice weight on the nose of some of these solid body frogs and throw them and punch them through that mat, they think it's just a frog that got spooked and is heading for the bottom, and they'll eat it. Just like
great reaction.
A lot of those big swim jigs, those big purple looking jigs, that looks like nothing that they see on a regular basis. I guarantee you they think it's either a bait fish or a frog that is spooked and is heading to the bottom, and that's why they get eaten. Now you got a lot of other stuff like this. I put this one up here for effect more than anything else, but they do make frogs with little lips on them like that in the front that could actually swim as well. You know,
wobble.
a smaller frog, kind of like an arbogast, you know, the old blackbird and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, they have the same little things they'll put on the front of a frog and make it swim back and forth and walk the dog just like any other ones. If you notice, this one here has little spinners built in to the back of the frog, you know, so you can just buzz this one across the surface. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they think that's a frog or not, but it's something that's going buzzing
Looks
across.
froggy to me.
They want to eat it. So.
All right, well, it's time for us to leap over to another region.
Oh,
Good
we're
job,
leaping.
baby.
We're leaping.
That was good. That was good, Rick. Well, now that everyone knows what I look like early in the morning running to the boat, let's check in with our Garmin Lower Coast Region captain. That's what Rick said. Chad Kidney, where there's a rumor inshore is the place to be. Is this true, Chad?
You got that right. I'll tell you what, usually, of course, I do inshore, offshore, but I'm going to spend a little bit more time on inshore. The inshore bite's really been good on a lot of species, so we're going to kind of focus on that. Been fishing quite a bit out here at Port Mansfield, my home port, and it's been really good on trout, redfish, flounder, drum. The tides are up and stuff like that, but things are moving, changing. Watercolor is good, even with some higher winds. So I'll give you some good tips on what's going to happen here. We'll start with the trout fishing. It's been an excellent, like I said, out Port Mansfield here. Early in the AM, I've been starting out with a Mirror Lure Top Dog Junior. That stuff, it's hard to beat that one. Start there, work it until you maybe get tired and want to switch to a plastic. But when you do go to the soft plastic, I've been using a bunch. I keep on saying it, but that Saltwater Assassin Magic Grass has been just really worked good. I've been rigging that with an 1/8 ounce jig head and been putting a shock leader on there, about 20 to 30 pound Mamoy. Works really good. I've been using personally around a 20. Works great. But the fish have been holding out there deeper. So work those deeper grass breaks north of the East Cut up to like around Butcher's Island, even the Dubs, Joneses and stuff like that. Hit that break in like 4 to 6 foot of water. Some of those fish are even going to that 7 foot where the sand really starts going. What you got to do is cast out their fire, of course, let that bait drop to the bottom. Use a lot slower retrieve and kind of bump those grass beds and stay on top of it. Feel the sand kind of pop it off there, almost like flounder fishing. You're going to feel a big old thump. And that's where the trout been kind of hanging. They haven't been up in that shallow stuff yet. When they do, I'll let you know when they get up there. I got a solid picture of a buddy of mine that was out fishing. He got good release of a solid 28-inch trout there.
Whoa, that is a nice trout.
Yeah, it was good. So moving over to flounder fishing, we've been fishing cuts and North Land Cut and East Cut, stuff like that. But flounder fishing's actually still been pretty good in the East Cut here around Arroyo City. So work those guts, drop-offs along the grass lines, sand pockets. Use that 1/8 ounce to 1/4 ounce. If the current's moving a little bit hard in those guts, move to the 1/4 ounce, a little bit heavier jig head to keep that bottom down lower on the deal. You got to work those baits real slow. Of course, wait for that thump to do when you're flounder fishing. You got to work all those edges. If you're fishing even a 10-foot wide gut, work every edge of that grass bed and sand pocket over and over, because they may be sitting there, you might have just missed them. But when you get that, thump, get that flounder just a little bit of short time, take that bait, and give him one good hook set. But keep that drag a little bit looser. I like keeping it a little bit looser, enough to stick it in his mouth, but not to where he's going to start shaking his head nuts and spit it. So they don't shake the hook like that. So either have a net ready if you're going that stuff, but if you're walking the banks and stuff like that, real simple. You don't need to take a net. Just kind of slowly drag them up there and just kind of slide them up on the land. Put them on your stringer or release them, whatever you feel like doing. So you got a beautiful picture here of a nice flounder that guy released. So
Nice.
Wow.
So, yeah, moving over to drum fishing. So normally we don't cover a whole bunch of black drum and stuff like that, but we're going to do that. Drum fishing's also been excellent around these cuts. I've talked to guys North Land Cut, East Cut, flats and stuff like that. The commercial guys, I know them all. They're fishing. They're doing really good on drum. Try some fish bites on a jig head. It works really good. If you see some big schools and it's nice and calm in the morning, all you can do is cast in front of them, let it sit on the bottom. They're going to pick it up off the bottom, and they'll pick them and go. If not, just work those drop-offs and guts too also, and let it sit there and kind of wait for them to come through, because they're going to feed off that bottom. They're an excellent fight, especially, those bigger ones. There's been plenty of the eating size range, but there's been some larger ones in that 30 to 40 pound class on up. And those are the ones that really test the drags and stuff. So I've been using those Alvey spinning reels I've been talking about. These things are like bulletproof. We'll cast up, you can cast into the wind with the spinning, everything else, but you get those big 30, 40 pounders, we're landing them on 20 pound braid, and that drag has just been holding up nonstop, not to mention the wade fishing with it. So got a picture of it, a good sized drum right here. A young lady also released here, and that was in the East Cut there in Port Mansfield.
Nice. Good pictures this week, Chad. What
Yeah.
else you got for us? Let's go offshore.
State waters. Yeah, offshore. I'll be getting some more stuff coming up here for you guys. We're getting the blue water and stuff, but right now we're going to continue the state water, because that's what the bite's going on. So state water snapper fishing's really been good. All the lower coast, Port A, Mansfield, South Padre Island. The snapper, like I said, it's been really good. Just look for that structure in 40, 90 foot deep. currents have been getting better like that, so I've been love using jigs and stuff when I do. Eagle Claw makes a trocar jig, and they got a trocar hook in that thing. These things are excellent hooks. They're super sharp, and try to use the lighter jig you can, but figure on a 1 to 3 ounce jigs. Even get some bigger ones in your arsenal. And I mean, same thing, using the Memorial leader tied to that. Probably it's about an 80 pound. The lighter you can get, the better, but I like using 80, so it keeps a lot of chafing off. That's from structure, but mainly those bigger snapper. Those bigger snapper, they got gill plates on the sides. They turn their side, and you got a lighter line, they're going to pop you off, and you think you're on structure. It's not, it's just a bigger fish. So the main thing also on this, when you're fishing, use your Garmin GPS. I've got them on all my boats from offshore to bay and stuff like that. Not to get you the location, but then also look at the sounder, see where the fish are suspended or on the bottom. And we use those jigs, you can work that through there. And one more tip I got on the jigs, we call it naked. You can drop them naked, go through the fish column there, but I've been attaching fish bites to them, and you're getting a lot more increased bites and catch on that.
Nice. Those are some really good tips. Thank you so much. It's time to go ahead and take a look at the shallow sport boats, hot spots from the Garmin Lower Coast region. He says inshore. Port Mansfield has been on fire inshore for trout, redfish, flounder, and black drum. Fish bites in the shrimp flavor on a Bass Assassin 3/8 ounce jig head is going to work for them. And then offshore, head offshore to state waters for excellent red snapper fishing and try cut bait on that trocar circle hook to catch a bait.
What's your personal favorite fish bites flavor, Rick?
I like shrimp because I think everything eats a shrimp, and
Well, you've actually eaten fish bites before too.
Yeah, shrimp seems to be my flavor, and specifically in the pink strip.
Okay, good to know. All right, we're making our best and most accurate cast into the Alvey Rio Middle Coast and Fish Bites Upper Coast regions next. So stay hooked on the one and only Texas Insider Fishing Report, and we'll be right back with your captains.
All right.
The Texas Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Contender Boats, always in the game. Bass Assassin and Saltwater Assassin, the best lures, period. Alvey Reels, a better way to fish. And Murphy's Law Sport Fishing. Book your trip today at murphyslawsportfishing.com.
An entirely new species of extreme predator is moving offshore. The Yamaha 5.6-liter V8 XTO offshore outboard. Extreme big block thrust and power in the industry's first direct injection 4-stroke. Quiet, efficient, powerful, and proven Yamaha reliability. More than an outboard, it's a fully integrated power system. The all-new Yamaha V8 XTO offshore.
Why is Casa Vieja Lodge on everyone's bucket list?
Left teaser, left flat as well, 2 fish. They're everywhere. Right flat teaser as well. Left flat, right flat teaser.
Come to Casa Vieja Lodge and check it off your list.
Finding a shoreline is easy. Finding a sure thing is not. For over 20 years, anglers from Kitty Hawk to California and every shore in between have come to know one thing: that nothing says no to fish bites. So just stop with the fishing and get busy with the catching. Ask for Fish Bites or Fish Bites Fight Club lures or visit fishbites.com.
Today's Power Pole tip is about the Sea Monster Network. As most of you know, Power Pole has always been a technology-driven company and will continue to innovate new products and technologies now and into the future. It was about 6 or 7 years ago that we looked at all the different technologies that were available on the market, but they all had limitations like Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. So we designed and built the Sea Monster network from the ground up, specifically designed it for the marine industry so that anglers could wirelessly control everything on their boat from bow to stern. Now, it may not be as obvious as the power pole anchors on the back of everyone's boat, but it will soon be just as widespread. So, next time you're in the store and you're picking out your favorite marine accessory, look for the Sea Monster logo on those products. And that is your power pole tip.
What do you have to say, Rick?
You know, Bree, the cool part about the Sea Monster app that Robert was talking about is that now we have the ability to monitor everything. We have the ability to monitor the charge. We have the ability to monitor all the batteries on the boat, as well as if there's something that needs to be troubleshot, you can monitor exactly what that is through the app. So whether it's the poles or charge or
That's nice.
anything
Fully
else that they make.
in control.
Exactly.
Exactly. All right, our Alvy Real Middle Coast Region captain is on the line now to give us an in-depth look at the weekend ahead. So, Bink, give it to us straight.
All right. Hey, wind's blowing down here. Stiff southerly breeze is pumping up the tides. It's pushing those trout tighter to the shorelines. And those waders casting the reefs and working the sand and grass pockets have done really well on trout. In Palacios, Ray Sexton said the trout bite on shrimp has been excellent while wading. He's working the south shoreline of West Matagorda Bay most days and concentrating on the flats with the higher tides. He said most of those trout have been hanging in about 40 to 50 yards off the shoreline. Tides are about 2 foot above normal right now, so those flats that are normally knee deep are about waist deep right now. In Matagorda, guy Michael Rolfe, he's been drifting with live shrimp and catching limit. Those high tides have him tight to the shoreline too. But he's working the shell as well and throwing live shrimp for fish to 5 pounds right off the edge of those reefs. In Port O'Connor, guy Lynn Smith said he's been doing great on protected shorelines for trout from 18 to 24 inches. Most of the fish have come on plastics like MirrOlure softines and provokers and bass assassins as well. And then he said those small top waters, man, our water temperatures are running about 75 to 76. So a lot of those fish are coming up and eating those top waters. Around Freeport, Bass Drop, and Christmas Bay, there's been fish all over the reef. Best bet's been on live shrimp casted to the edge of the reef. A lot of black drum on those edges as well. An influx of tide here lately has sent a lot of the Gulf trout, those large, what we call sand trout, those fish to 2 pounds. They're not uncommon this time of year. They're solid fighters, great to eat. The Cajuns, they call them sand trout, white trout. Best spots are in the surf on the deep reefs in East Matagorda Bay. Those people who target speckled trout, they'll take a sand trout all day long. It's just really, really good table fare. Then in Rockport, they're finding really, really good fish around super flats on small top waters like MirrOlure she dogs and top ups, and then again on corkies and MirrOlure softing. There's a photo right there of a 6-pound trout. Hunter Bird or Joshua caught while working East Matagorda Bay. We'll go to redfish. Lots and lots of shrimp in the bays. Our bay shrimpers are having no problem keeping tanks full at the bait camps. When that's normally the case, when there's a lot of shrimp at the bait camp, we've got a really, really good bite for trout and sand trout and speckled trout. When the bait shrimpers are having a tough time catching shrimp, fishing seems to always be a little tougher. The same pattern's been around Palacios and Matagorda, Crab Lake, Oyster Lake, Coon Island, redfish on live shrimp under popping cork. Tides are really high. Those fish are right on top of the shell or right up in the grass lines. Waders have found redfish tight to the grass on bloated shorelines as well. Those smaller shrimp are hiding in that grass with the high tides, and those reds run up and down that shoreline and just root them up. You'll see those shrimp jumping out of the water running for their lives when a school of redfish come by. The best bet for reds, the bigger reds are on the beach. A lot of slot size up to 28 inches, and then there's some bull reds in the first gut and also the second bar as well. And if you work right tight to the rocks, the jetty, you can get a really, really good redfish right now. The Surfside Port O'Connor jetties are holding bull reds as well. Some are using crack crabs, and others are freelining those big Gulf shrimp on Carolina rigged tail hooks. There's a photo there, redfish schooling in the Middle East, Matagorda Bay. shrimp under a mid-coast court. It's deadly any time of the year. We'll go offshore in Freeport. Got Mike Segal of Real Thrill Charter said the red snapper are really good in state waters. The problem has been winds been gusted to 20. There's been 4 to 6 foot seas out there. But about once a week we get a 2 to 3 foot chop out there, and they're jumping out there and getting them. Sardines and shad dropped in 35 to 40 foot of water have been best. A lot of sharks out there as well. And then Michael Quebec in Matagorda said the lings and amberjacks are showing. Red snapper are good as well in state waters. Most of those fish in the 10 to 15 pound range. You just got to choose your days because it's been kind of bumpy out there. There's a lot of bull redfish and sharks near the beach as well. Cobia and kingfish are starting to show up with a water temperature nearing about 77 to 78 degrees in the Gulf. Wahoo are on the deeper rips and trash lines. Our spring has been really, 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 really good, and it should only continue.
All right, thank you so much, Bink. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the hot spots from the Alvey Middle Fresh region. Bink says that the trout are good in Port O'Connor on top waters on the incoming tide. Bull redfish are good at the jetties in Port O'Connor. And then Port Aransas and Freeport, those jetties are on fire as well. So check it out, guys.
All right, Fish Bites Upper Coast Regioners, you're in for quite the treat if fishing is on your to-do list this week. And Captain Carl Weston is here to tell us what the bite will be. Let's hear it, Carl.
Well, guys, the trout bite is still on fire from Sabine Lake all the way down to West Galveston Bay. And we are seeing some really big fish this year. Matter of fact, I've received stacks of amazing shots that I wish I could share on TV with everybody, but we only have one slot, so. But the reports of these big trout are coming in, and folks are saying that they're chasing bait all along the grassy shoreline and the shell reefs. Rick, the reefs in the middle of Galveston Bay Complex are loaded with bait right now. So if you're going to target these big trout, this is a great place to start. And we have seen fish just this week that have measured up to 32 inches. So some major studs out there. Don't miss out on this action right now, folks. And as far as bait goes, what we've been using, the Mirror Lure Twitch bait and the Bass Assassin Sea Shad on a light jig head have been money in the bank. Live bait choices have been shrimp or minnows on a popping cork. So just pick your poison and hit the water. I don't think you'll be disappointed this week. And we have a picture of Mo with a beautiful trout here.
Nice, very nice.
Go, Mo.
All right, man. What else you got
Mo.
for us this week? Go, Mo.
Well, redfish, folks, starting out at Trinity Bay, chasing redfish this past week, the water temp has been between 72 and 75 around those same shell flats we were just mentioning. And the bait in this area, once again, is abundant. The reds are chasing this bait all over the place, which is making it a lot easier to find fish this week. And always look to the eye in the sky to show you the way first. The birds are being present in the area. They're hovering over the bait, hovering over the fish. Look for them. It's going to get you in close. And then watch for some blow-ups along the shoreline and in the bait pods. Now, you still want to manage to get ahead of these schools and let them work to you. We've had some great luck throwing a Mirror Lure Mirrodine Twitch bait once again in a shiny green or a bright white color. And the 19MR and silver scale has been very productive in pulling in the groceries. The best live bait option is still going to be shrimp on a popping cork or a small croaker. And like I said with the trout, you won't be disappointed this week with the fish. We have a picture here of young Dylan bringing some groceries home to his house.
Yeah, looking good, man.
I love it.
All right, it's time. Give me some offshore love.
All right, well, let's talk about Dorado. What can I say? Heading offshore this week has been a bit windy and rather sporty. And the seas are laying down a little more and a little more as we go. We're looking for some good weather windows here soon, so don't pass them up if you get one. A week back, there had been some really good-sized Dorado out around the 40 to 50-mile mark. These fish have been working some of the current breaks and small grass patches that were scattered out there. So as you head offshore to your favorite spot, don't pass up on anything floating. Throw a line out, you just might hook a Big Daddy Dorado. There's been a few of them around. Some of the bigger fish are in early this year due to this mild winter. And catching bait this year doesn't seem to be an issue either, Rick, since there are plenty of showing up around structure, all the way to the inshore jetties. We're seeing a lot of bait. And as usual here early, you'll hit some pods of smaller dolphin. And when you do, the best bet on these little guys is just to tie about a 2-foot length of diamond fluorocarbon to a number 3 or number 4 eagle claw treble hook. And you can finish off that rig with a piece of cut bait or a piece of that yummy fish bites in crab or shrimp flavor, and then get ready to reel in those mahi tacos because you're going to be busy. And we got a picture here of Mr. Tyler with a nice bull.
All right.
Oh, that's so pretty.
You got one more species to go. What you got, Bub?
We're going to go back after wahoo again. We talked about it early in the year, and the bite is still hot. And, you know, what an amazing fish to catch. These wahoo are still around, and they're proving to be really good size. The early morning and late afternoon are still showing to be the best bite, Rick. You know, to hone in on these fish. The larger underwater structures like the rock formations and the reef in the 70 to 100 mile range seem to be the playgrounds for these bigger schools right now. And your best bet to snag one of these toothy critters is high-speed trolling, which will help ensure a good hook set. And like I just said, when you hook up to a wahoo, don't let up on the throttles right away. You want to make sure that hook is set good in that tough mouth. And if you are going to slack off a little bit to fight the fish, just be sure not to give them too much slack or that old wahoo will be gone. And as for our preference in bait, we're running a mixed spread of R&R Wahoo Magnet Seniors and Islanders rigged with ballyhoo in dark colors right now. And we have a picture of Mr. Chris with one of these wild wahoo from Texas.
Nice. All right, Bub. Good job on the pictures and the report. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the Mirrolure hotspots from the Upper Coast region. He says inshore trout are being found along the shell reefs and along the shorelines on Mirrolure twitch baits or shrimp on a popping cork, and then offshore, Dorado on the current breaks and grass patches, trolling R&R mahi magnets or free line, some fish bites on a treble hook, and the crab or shrimp flavor is going to work so good.
That's your favorite too. We already discussed this. All right,
Everybody knows my face.
Everybody knows it. All right, for our next order of business, we're headed into the Upper Fresh region. But first, let's see what kind of business Dave is drumming up for new products at the workbench. Dave.
Well, I've got a dredge in a bucket.
Wow.
Look at that.
Wow.
Whole thing fits in a bucket.
Keeps going.
Oh my gosh.
All
Can
in one
some
bucket.
man get him a ladder?
I need a ladder.
He needs help. We'll be back.
The Texas Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Ameritrail. Load, launch, relax. Turn on the bite anytime. Tie on a Mirrolure. Diamond Fishing Products. Our reputation is on the line. And Startron. Cures and prevents ethanol fuel problems.
At the pinnacle of super high output, 4-stroke outboard performance, you'll find Yamaha VMAX SHO. Yamaha's game-changing SHO technology. From exhilarating V6 models to the sleek inline 4s, there's a VMAX SHO for everything from bass to bonefish. It's an extended family of 4-strokes engineered for lightweight, inspiring performance, and rock-solid reliability. Discover VMAX SHO and elevate your expectations.
The only reel with over 100 years of heritage. Alvi reels are manufactured using the most reliable components. Alvi's state-of-the-art drag and retrieve rates are perfect for any fishing challenge. So whether it's a side cast or spinning reel, Alvi makes a reel that best fits your needs. Alvi reels are manufactured to best practice standards and are in fact so robust that the Alvi also comes with up to a 10-year salt and sand warranty. For more information, go to alvius.com.
Dave?
Yes, Rick?
New products?
Yeah, we got them right here.
I guess probably I mean to switch the order of the Alvi commercial being that I didn't put you in there.
Yeah, exactly.
And you are the Alvi man.
Yeah, exactly. Here we go. Everglades Fishing Company. We're going to start with those boots down there. These are the Everglades Fishing Company deck boots. Really tough, durable boot. Obviously waterproof. Got a nice little handle here so you can pull them on and off. They're the perfect size. You know, they're not too tall, they're not so short, so they keep your feet out of the water. Got an excellent siping on the bottom so it stays where it's gonna, where you put it, hopefully, and you're not sliding around with them.
They're so comfortable.
That's what you told me. They look very nice in there.
It's like
There's
walking
a lot of,
on a whole bed of soft things.
Yes, I can imagine. I can imagine.
Sponges,
very soft.
I was going
sponges.
down a bad road there,
Yes,
bro.
you are. You're very close.
Okay.
But they come in two different colors, white and the gray Digicamo right there. And those things, I think they have Ridge's name all over them, don't they?
Oh yeah,
those look like Ridge's.
Ridge and Colin. These are mine actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, here we go. We got some pompano catchers from Rich Vidalich. He's a big pompano man. I call him Pompano Rich anyway. Anyway, he makes jigs and those little quills actually, and he just makes a ton of different colors. They range in size from a quarter ounce all the way up to a 1 ounce. 3/8, half, and 3/4. Puts a lot of mylar on there. But if you look at this one, how he rigs it with the quill, he sells the jigs and the quills separately, or you can get them together. But he rigs the quill on a big loop. So, and he just jigs this thing up and down about 4 inches off the bottom. And what happens is the jig comes up and then goes down real quick and the quill follows. And he says he gets 90% of the bites on that little quill.
The quill following.
Exactly. And he says they think it's a little shrimp or something. He says, I get bites on the jigs too, but the quill, if the quill is on there, he says that's what they're going to eat.
He's like made a dropper rig.
He has, and it's a really cool little thing there. He says you just keep contact with the bottom, just hop it little hops, and that little quill falls slower than the jig. Wow. And gets nailed. And he uses 20-pound fluorocarbon on all this stuff here, so you can't see it.
Nice.
And Pompano Catchers, if you give him a call at 561-818-0589, that's his phone number.
Wow.
You can get he'll set you up with some Pompano stuff. Next down there we got that Swiss Army knife. It's it's called the Ranger Grip Boatman, and it's made for a guy who wants to, it's all stainless steel and stuff, for a guy who wants to go out on a boat. You can put it in a toolbox or whatever and do a lot of different things with it. Has like 42 different tools. It's like an inch and 3/10 height, 5 inches long, and weighs about 9.5 ounces. It's got 42 different tools on there. It's got the really nice grips on the side, so you can use it a lot of different things. It's got a toothpick, it's got pliers and tweezers, it's got cutters. What's really cool is on the side, you can put these sockets in the side and use it to run a socket.
Nice.
Right in here. Hold on a second. Anyway. So get the Victorinox. You go online at victorinox.com. Swiss Army knife, Ranger Grip Boatman.
Nice.
It's really cool. It's got a marlin spike on there and everything.
Wow.
Last but not least, we've got from Fish Razor. This is a bucket dredge, and it's a dredge that fits in a bucket. Comes with that 4-pound weight as well. And this whole thing, if you're on a center console boat or any small boat, and you want to pull a dredge and you don't have a big place to store them, because they are a pain in the butt to store a full-size dredge. But this comes with all these, two versions. This one has 21 9-inch tournament squid, and then they make a different one with little smaller squids. It comes with 35 squids on it, 2 10-inch bars. Like I said, that 4-pound ball come in green, red, blue, or pink fluorescent. FishRazor.com, and it all fits in this bucket.
Wow.
Which is awesome. And it's good hardware on there. It's not going to pull apart. Good stuff.
All right. Well, good job, man.
All righty.
All right, Bree.
All right, well, some consistency is on the way in the Upper Fresh region, so let's hear how Johnny Geis is guiding us into this weekend on Lake Fork and Tawakoni.
Hello, Rick and Bree. How are y'all today?
Good. How you doing, Johnny?
Hey, from the Upper Fresh region, man, this has been a crazy spring this year on Fork. We've had so much rain, the high winds, and severe cold fronts. It's been a tough April. The bass been kind of hard to pattern, but the bite's been inconsistent for a while, but boy, it's starting to finally improve now. We get a little bit of the stable weather this week. Appears the last wave of our spawning bass, they've moved up into the shallows on the mid and the lower ends of the lake. And we still have some bedding bass, and with this next full moon, that'll probably conclude the major part of the bass spawn. Still catching some on the banks, though, but there's several patterns starting to produce at this time. Usually, each day, that weather and wind would dictate what the best bite's going to be that day and where I'll start. So on the warm, cloudy days, the shallow water frog bite, it's the best way to catch some real big bass. We're starting out early, fishing the weed lines, using the soft body popper type frog, mainly in the Glade Creek areas where we got the most grass. It's a fun way to catch a big bass for sure up here, but nothing's more exciting than watching them blow up on a frog, that's for sure. We're looking for those areas that have that shallow weed line with some open water behind. We call it alligator weed here on the lake. Cast that frog as close to the shore as possible. Pop it right off the bank even will work. Slowly pop it and let it sit. The bass are garden fry. Also, we got some bass feeding on some bedding up bluegill. So when you fish that soft body frog, be sure to use a braided line though. Real important. Try to wait till you feel that fish before you set the hook. That's a lot easier said than done, but if you're using the right rod, braided line, that'll improve your hookup ratio a whole bunch. But you gotta resist immediately setting the hook when you hear that blow up. Bass usually misses the lure a lot of times, but you slowly keep popping the frog in that immediate area, and the bass usually come back and hit again. So learn how to fish that frog. It's a deadly weapon right now. So after that frog bite slows out, we move to the outer weed lines and fish a weightless Bass Assassin 4-aught Eagle Claw trocar hook. Man, what a sharp hook that thing is. This hook works great on the plastic stick bait as well. We're fishing the green pumpkin, watermelon red. That's been the colors that's been hot this week. On windy days, and boy, we're getting a bunch of those. We're starting to see a shad spawn. It's happening in some areas of the lake, and you just have to be there when it's on. It's a very exciting bite when you find it, and it can produce both numbers of bass and some big ones too. Big swim baits, that's the ticket. Throwing that on an 8 to 10-aught trocar hook. It's a good choice for catching bass that are feeding on the threadfin and even the bigger gizzard shad. So the windy main lake points, they're the best areas that we're fishing right now. But you have to hit a bunch of points to find the best action. It's not the same place every day. Drive around the boat till you see the bird activity. That gives away the best spawning area where the shad are, and the bass are up feeding on them. You'll usually see the gray herons, white cranes, and sometimes even seagulls. They'll really be working a bank over it. You can actually see the shad jumping out on the bank, and the birds are working on them because the bass are pushing them up. So May's usually a great month to catch bass on Lake Fork. There's so many techniques and patterns that may be working at any given time. But also, May can be the most challenging time of the year to get into a daily pattern. The post-spawn bass are finicky to say the least, and they're changing their habits daily. So it's kind of easy to miss that action if you start off on the wrong area or you're using the wrong lures. So anglers must be real flexible this time of year and keep an open mind. Watch your environment, weather, and keep trying different things till you figure it out. So talking about figuring it out, I got a picture of a fellow guy, Jason Kahn's customer. This last week, he caught a 12.18, caught that big bass on a crankbait, little square bill crankbait. And Jason Kahn, he also won the Big Bass Cash Bash Award in the month of March for a 10.61. So that young man's had a real good spring so far, and they're just biting good on his side.
Johnny, you got about 45 seconds left so pick one or the other, stripers or crappies, tell me.
Okay, let's do the crappie then before we get on. The big crappie are still biting on Fork, although we still have some crappie spawning in shallow water. The big ones are out there in the trees, 20, 27 foot. Each day I'm seeing more and more crappie moving out of the brush piles, starting to school up. that Garmin live scope's become a necessity on the front of my boat. So you got to get one. You got to learn how to use it. Way to catch the big ones. Guide buddy Cameron Burnett catches limits each day, and I'm getting close, but he's on them a lot better. The crappie action has been more consistent for me this year than the bass. And throw out this picture. Here's Cameron with a funny little T-shirt. Says he was a crappie guide before live scope. So anyway, that's what's going on. Stripers over at Tawakoni biting too, Rick.
We got to go, Johnny. I'm going to go ahead and we'll talk about stripers next week. I got to look at the hot spots from the upper fresh region, Lake Fork. The bass and crappie are in all stages of the spawn. Bass are hitting top waters, swim baits on the main lake points. Crappie are starting, moving out of the brush piles, and then Lake Tawakoni, water is full level pool, and then stripers and hybrids, good swim bait slabs. You got it going on everywhere, so it's time for us to say goodbye. Bass mainly on chartreuse slab.
Oh, that was so good. You got it going on everywhere. That was the best report of the show.
Everywhere.
It's going on everywhere, guys.
Exactly.
Going on everywhere.
Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you get out there this weekend if you can. Stay safe. We will see you next week. Go catch those big fish.
That's right.
Let's go.
Thanks for watching,
Thank
guys.
you. Bye.
See you later. Bye-bye.